Hi guys, I am here at Spring Harvest and I am really looking forward to you hearing this next episode of Another Mother with Debra Green OBE. And she is speaking all about the seeds that we sow into our children in their younger years and how you've just got to trust the process in partnership with God and you will see the fruit come as they get older. So please do listen to this episode. You can check it out wherever you usually listen to your podcast or on YouTube. We will see you there. Hello everyone and welcome back to Another Mother. This is a faith and parenting podcast by My Spring Harvest with me, Emma Francis. I am a mum of two little ones. I've got Ezra who is 5 and Hallie who is 2 and very, very cheeky. And I guess like we've all experienced in some way or another, life can be unpredictable. It's full of ups and downs and curveballs, especially when you've got kids. But like anything in life, it is better when we do it together. So I'm glad that you've joined us for today's conversation where we can be inspired and encouraged, and hopefully you'll receive a bit of extra strength and joy for your day, wherever it is that you find yourself today. So I am very excited that we are joined by the wonderful Debra Green this morning. Hello,
Hi.
Deborah.
Hi, Emma.
It's so nice to see you. So for those that don't know, Deborah is the CEO of Redeeming Our Communities, which is an incredible organisation doing really important work, uniting different organisations to like come together to do the important work as a team rather than loads of people being independent. And you've actually received an OBE for your work, haven't you?
Yeah, in 2012, went to the old Buckingham Palace, got my OBE, and it was just so exciting because it's in recognition of all the wonderful work our team do and our volunteers do in serving communities.
Wow, and you've devoted like so much of your life to this work. How long have you been doing that now?
So my charity is 20 years old. It's going to be 21 years old this year. But back before I set my charity up, I'd already been doing this kind of work for about 10 years. So yeah, a long time. I was a church leader as well, and I set up the charity about the same time and brought the city together to pray and to work in redeeming communities.
It's amazing. And you've also been involved with Spring Harvest for many years.
Yes.
On the kind of leadership team here, the speaking team. What is it that you love about Spring Harvest?
So I think I've been coming for 45 years. And I was asking the other day, actually, I said, has anybody been here as long as more than 45 years? And no hands went up. And I thought, oh no, really? I've been coming the longest then. I love people. And I get to see, apart from ministry, I love the ministry, I get to see people that I love on team that I only see them once a year. So I get to catch up with team. It's all the wonderful things God does. Like we had a situation where a lady has been praying for her husband for 30 years. She's a Christian, he's not a Christian. And he gave his life to Jesus. Days ago.
My goodness.
30 years she's been praying. And when you see things like that, wonderful, a lady who was healed yesterday, a lady called Ellie, she's given us permission to share. She's had chronic fatigue syndrome for 3.5 years.
Oh my goodness.
Confined to her bed. And she was healed, completely healed this week. Spring Harvest.
Wow.
Just wonderful, isn't it?
That is incredible. It's so incredible. I've been hearing loads of things about, the things that are happening in the main sessions, not just the main sessions, the seminars, the kids groups. I was speaking to one of the kids leaders and they were saying they've got 700 children.
700 in our kids' work this week, and over 150 kids have given their life to Jesus this week.
Wow.
So we're seeing so many salvations, and people are quite surprised about that, because people think it's a Christian camp. So where are all these unchurched people coming from?
Yeah, true.
But of course, people are bringing their family and friends along because it's Butlins.
Yeah.
And sort of, saying, no, you don't have to go to any sessions. You can just go to the swimming pool, or you can just go and have a drink in the bar. And then, of course, we sneak them in. We get them in some, they go on Alpha. We had a lady yesterday, Kendra, who gave her life to the Lord. She'd been on Alpha, taken by a friend a few weeks ago. And then she comes here to Spring Harvest, gives her life to the Lord last night in the gathering.
Oh, goodness.
It's just amazing.
Wow. It makes sense then why you've been able to have that sustained energy to do this for so many years, because it's like every year you might expect that it's just going to be the same again, but it's like God always does something new, and it's exciting, and probably just like fills you with energy for the rest of the year as well, doesn't it?
Yeah. And it's not just people who are on site. You know, we've got Spring Harvest Home, hundreds of people watching that. We've got 60,000 people watching it in prison cells across the UK.
What, through
it's
Spring
being
Harvest
live streamed into prisons, and today it's on YouTube for free, so people can watch it all over the world. It's amazing.
So incredible.
So it's bigger than what we've got here on site.
Yeah, that is amazing. Wow. So let's talk a little bit about you and your family. So you've got adult children now. Tell us, how old are they?
So I've got 4 adult children. I've got 2 girls. 40 years of age is my eldest, Sarah. Then I've got Rebecca, she's 40. Then I've got 2 sons. Josh is 35 and Matthew is 31.
And how long have you and your husband been married for?
45 years.
Okay, and you were just telling me before we started recording that he makes you a cup of tea every day and makes you your breakfast every day.
Yeah. Big shout out to my husband, Frank. He loves serving and bringing me tea and fruit salad.
I love
every day. I don't want to make any other people feel guilty, but I've got a good
just
one there.
Setting the standard.
I'm just setting the standard.
So in terms of, as a family, you were doing church ministry.
Yes.
And then you've kind of then evolved into doing more of your charity stuff, but all of the ministry things do come at a cost to a family, especially with 4 kids.
Yes.
How did you make that call of like what to do at what time, what to prioritise at any given time?
So when the children were younger, I would have been probably working part-time then. I was working part-time rather than full-time, doing some church ministry stuff and a little bit of work, other work. And so I was more based at home. So I was always there when the kids were coming back from school. And then a funny thing happened was that Andy Hawthorne from the Message Trust rang me up one day and said, I really want you to, he was advertising for a job to bring somebody that was going to bring all the churches together across Manchester for Message 2000 and Festival Manchester. And he said, I really feel it's you. And I'm like, no, I can't do it. I've got stuff going on at home. I'm running a church, too much on. Kids are quite young. And then he said, right, okay. And then he rang me back the next day and I said no again. And I said to myself, and I said to the Lord, if he asks me a 3rd time, I'm going to do it.
Really?
But I had a conversation with my husband, and my son was 11 at the time, my youngest son. So the others were a little bit older. And I said, could we do kind of a swap of arrangements whereby you're more the anchor person at home so that I can do this full-time job? And because he was the pastor of a church, he could do some of his work in the evening, but could be there for the kids coming home from school. And he said, yeah, I'll do it for a couple of years. Yeah, we'll go. It's never changed since.
Really?
He's been doing it ever since. And he then found that he loved being the anchor point at home.
Wow.
He's the more sensible one of the 2 of us around things like shopping. Spends less money than me, he says. Spends less money than me, goes out, does the shopping, cooking. I still do the ironing.
Okay.
So that's But he did that, and that released me to do this full-time job, which then led on to me setting up Rock and all the other things. Yeah, so we did that swap.
Yeah.
Because for all those years he was the pastor of the church, the senior pastor, I was his support. I was sort of in leadership in the church as well, but more in a supportive role.
Yeah.
And then we kind of flipped.
Yeah.
That's how it worked for us.
I think that's so good to even like the fact that you sat down to have that conversation, because so often we just get a bit stuck in our ways, don't we?
Yeah.
Or in like what our parents did or what our friends around us are doing, that you don't even think, oh, we could do this a different way. But the fact that you had the conversation, and that it freed you to do.
Yeah, because my mum was an at-home mum, a stay-at-home mum. She didn't really have a job. My dad had a very big job and they didn't need any more money. So she was an at-home mum. And I think the assumption is sometimes you're just going to carry on in the footsteps of what your parents did. And I'm really, really different. So, you know, it's just working those things out, isn't it? Because I think it's no right way of doing family life. It's you have the conversation together as a couple, or however your home is running. You have the conversations with your kids and you work it out.
Yeah, and nothing is forever as well, is it? Like,
that's right.
You obviously, it then became forever, but you made the agreement for it to be like, okay, yeah, I'll do this for a few years. Like, you can give things a go, and if it doesn't work,
if it doesn't
change
work
it.
out, you change it. You've just got to keep communication going clearly.
Yeah, that's really good. And then I guess for your children, you said your youngest son was 11 by that point.
Yeah.
And then one of your children, I'm not sure if it was this son, got into a bit of trouble in their teen years. Was it your youngest son?
No, it wasn't the youngest. It was Josh.
Okay.
So Matthew's the one that was 11 when I went into full-time work. Josh, when he was about 17, he started, his personality just completely changed, almost overnight. He became surly, he didn't want to talk to us, he didn't want to come to church, hanging out with the people that we thought, were not the best people that he could be hanging out with. He gave up school. He just walked out of school. He said, I'm not doing my exams. I'm leaving. Went to work in a call centre. And it's just like, what on earth's happening to our son here? And I was speaking at a conference, got home. God had done amazing things. And all of a sudden, there's a police officer knocking at my front door. And when I sort of talk about it in a more light-hearted way, I say, because I work with the police, I work with 33 police forces across the UK within Rock. I said, and they were not coming to see me about my work. They weren't coming to see me about Rock.
They were just coming to say, well done on all the work you're doing.
Exactly. I'm just coming to see you, Deborah, and thanking you for all you do to reduce, antisocial behaviour. They're actually coming to arrest my son for antisocial behaviour. And I can just picture myself right now. I can remember it so clearly well. Frank wasn't at home. I just completely panicked. I didn't know what he'd done. I wasn't allowed to go with him. They took him out of the house, put him in a van and drove off with all my neighbours looking out the window. I'm thinking, what is going on? This is a Friday. So I don't know where he's gone. He's been arrested. And I was panicking. I was absolutely panicking. And my eldest daughter, Sarah, came round. She wasn't living at home at the time. She came round and she said, Mum, what's happened to you? I'm in bits. I'm crying. I'm, falling on my knees. It was awful. And she said, what's happened? I said, Josh has been arrested. She said, right. Right, Mum, pull yourself together. Why aren't you praying? I'm like, you cheeky madam, asking me why aren't I praying? I've written 2 books on prayer. And but I'd fallen apart on that moment. I needed somebody to help. And she dragged me into our conservatory at home and she said, Mum, we're going to pray. And she's a worship leader and she starts singing. She said, let's worship. Let's praise God. Worship is a weapon. Come on. And we started singing and suddenly we're getting a heavenly perspective and we're singing, we're worshipping. She said, Mum, get out your journals. What words did you have for Josh when he was a little boy? What were the scriptures that you had for his dedication? What has God said about him? And I said, well, he said he was going to be an evangelist. I've got it all written down in my journal. She said, right, read it out. Let's proclaim it. And it got to the point where I was marching around the house going, to Satan, you are not having my son. Get back away off him. He's going to be an evangelist. He's going to lead people to Christ. And we started declaring this stuff. Amazing. Josh is locked up. And we found out on the Monday, Frank went to pick him up. He'd been locked up for the weekend in Longsight Police Station. Went to court, was given a discharge because it was his first offence. Came home, walked through the front door, fell on the floor and said, Mum, please will you forgive me? Please will you forgive me? And I said, yeah, of course I'll forgive you. Yeah. You're my son, of course I'll always forgive you. I said, but what's happened to you? And he was transformed when he walked through the door. He was back to our son. He was radiant. I said, what has happened to you? And he said, on the Saturday in Longsight Police Station, I got on my knees and I said, Lord, please forgive me. Please give me a chance. And when I come out of this place, if you'll forgive me, he said, I'm going to tell other people about Jesus. I'm going to go to people and tell everybody about Jesus.
Yeah.
And then he said, and then the Lord just flooded in his police cell, a station cell, and he felt the presence of God, and he felt the Father's arms around him saying, of course I'll forgive you, son. And then he said, and then I heard this singing. I heard this worship music and singing, two voices. He said, thank you, Mum, for coming to the police station and singing, because I could hear you singing outside my cell. And they wouldn't let you in or something, but I could hear your voice. And I went, no, we weren't there. We didn't even know where you were. And he said, yeah, you and another voice singing. I know your voice, Mum. I said, no, we weren't there. And what had happened was from 5 miles away, we're at our house, Dunolly Road, Sale. He's in Longsight Police Station. The Holy Spirit, in our voices, was singing over him to say, yes, you've been forgiven, you've been set free. And that's exactly what happened. And I'm like, I can't believe that.
That is incredible.
And I say to other parents and grandparents who've got children away from the Lord right now, or partners or whoever, you can't be with your kids 24/7, but Jesus is.
Wow.
And the Holy Spirit is.
Amen.
And he's then transformed. So wind the clock forward. This was when he was 17, 18 years of age. He's now 35. He's married to a Christian lady called Emma. That might not have ever happened.
Oh, my name's Emma too. No.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a lovely name.
It's a great name.
And he's got 3 children. He's got Liberty Joy, Simeon, and Hallelujah Rose. Hallie.
I've got a Hallie.
I know, as I'm picking up on it. And I often say when I'm speaking about it, and you don't call your kids those names if you're not a Christian.
Yeah.
So how different would his life have been if he'd not come back to the Lord at that point?
Wow.
And now he's an evangelist traveling all over the world, set up a charity called Gen Zeal to reach the Gen Z. And he is preaching at the moment in 5 locations in the USA. Not all at once, 5 different, and leading people to Jesus.
Wow.
And that's how radically different that God made in our family.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's awesome.
My brain is just gone. I'm like, I don't have any more questions, sorry. I'm just like taking in the
questions.
I'm just taking in the story.
Yeah, it's awesome.
It's just amazing.
Yeah, it's awesome. And we just praise God because it's completely changed our family dynamic, and we've used that message to reach so many other people.
Yeah. And because I guess it wasn't overnight, that it wasn't like Josh was like golden child, then suddenly went to prison. And there was probably a time where he did, like you said, he felt different for a while, and you struggled for a while with him.
Yeah, I'd say it's probably about a year or so, that process. And you never, and that's at Spring Harvest this week, we've been talking about when God is with you in your story. You don't always get the story that you wanted.
Yeah.
You know, Leon Evans' book, No Greater Story, is amazing. You don't get the story that you wanted, but God's with you in that middle bit, and he's holding on to you in that bit. And then gradually the transformation comes sometimes, not overnight, as you say. You have to keep holding on to the Lord. Yeah,
because in that time, I guess like in that year where it probably was more challenging and you really had to hold on to God and trust God with his life, with Josh's life, how did you kind of stir your faith and like hold on and not almost, because sometimes as parents we can end up pushing our kids further away by going in a bit heavy-handed with the discipline and all that kind of stuff. How did you
I don't
navigate
recommend that? I often say to parents and say to myself and remind myself, be careful what you call out. You know, things like when our daughter Sarah was 16, she came down the stairs in this dress that basically looked like it had been sprayed on. You know, it was short, low cut, anyway, lycra dress. And I was so shocked as she's walking down the stairs, and I said, you're not going out in that dress. And I said, wait till your dad gets home. He's not going to be happy. Frank walked through the door and he said, oh, hi, darling, you look beautiful. Oh, in the kitchen, I'm going to kill you. And I thought, actually, some of those external things are not really that important.
Yeah.
Some of the things we get really hung up about our kids are not really that important.
Yeah.
It's more keeping the lines of communication open with them and making sure that even if they are going through a bit of a season where they don't want to come to church, you know, they're not interested in all of that, just keep the channels open, because that's not the end of the story.
Yeah.
You know, when there's a lovely verse in the Bible, it says, train up a child in the way they should go, and when they are older, they will not depart from it. That's a really interesting verse, because in my mind, it's saying, what does it mean by when they're older? Are we talking 5 years, 10 years?
Yeah.
You know, the things that you've embedded in them as a child, your spiritual values, and also being part of a community, because it's not just you bringing up your kids, it's the whole village, it's the community. The things that we've instilled in them and the Holy Spirit has done within them, they will return back to. But it might take a few years.
Yeah.
So I think that's really important.
That is really important. I love what you said as well about how when you were praying for Josh with your daughter as well, that like you got back the journals to look back over like what God has said
yes.
over his, because I think often people can say things in prayer over our kids, whatever, and you just like, oh, that's nice, like in the moment. Yeah. But to actually document that and take that really seriously is really powerful, because you don't know when you're going to call back on that at some point in the future. So
there's two things there, and I didn't mention before. It was what the Bible calls the prayer of agreement. When you're going through something, you need another person, at least one other person who you can trust to pray with you about that situation. Because it's what the Bible calls the prayer of agreement, where to agree, he is with you in that prayer. More powerfully than just one on your own. It's the prayer of agreement. But then the other thing is about what is the calling on that person's life, that child's life, and calling that back, calling that into being, even if the evidence doesn't look like it.
Yeah.
And saying, right, I'm just reminding you, Lord, this is what you said.
Yeah.
To my child, this is the truth. Everything else that's happening around, it's not the truth. It's just a set of situation, a circumstance. But what God has said is the truth. Yeah. And we call that into being.
Wow.
With another person, at least one or two or three.
Yeah.
Even better.
Hi guys, I'm just interrupting this episode of Another Mother very quickly because I wanted to show you where we've been doing all of our main sessions this week at Spring Harvest. It is here at Studio 36. This is where all of our podcast guests from this season have been sharing their inspiring teachings, leading us in heartfelt worship, and uniting us as a community in faith. So we want you to join us here at Butlin, Skegness or Minehead in April 2026 for a transformative week that will deepen your faith. So head over to springharvest.org and secure your place today. And don't forget, for Another Mother listeners, we've got an exclusive discount for you, detailed in the description below. So check that out, and we'll see you next year. That's such like helpful, practical advice. Because I think as well, it's easy to forget that God has like made our children unique, and although He's given them to us to be under our care, they are their own person. And I think sometimes some of the things that, like your daughter in the dress or whatever, like some of the things our kids do, we look at it more from a point of like, oh, they're going to embarrass us, or like that's not the representation that I want of me as a parent out in the world.
Spot on.
And so it's like almost identifying the things that are maybe our own insecurities actually, that we're like then projecting on our children to then not go out and
you're right. And especially me being a church leader and being the leader of a charity, you're supposed to be reducing crime. Here's your son now causing the crime. And I remember when he was a little boy, I mean, it was so hilarious. I'm leading this service at church, and the fire alarm is going off, and the fire engine arrives outside the church, and they all troop in, And they start walking into the service to speak to me, and I just knew it was Josh that had done it. I just knew straight away. And you're like, give me a break, trying to lead a church here, and you're doing these silly pranks. And everybody knew, and everybody was like, you know, knew what he was like and everything. And you feel judged.
Yeah.
And that's, but, you know, that's like when one of our co-pastors' wife was killed in a car accident, age 43. We had to take the funeral. The husband wanted me to do the funeral because I was very good friends with her, and I'm trying to lead a funeral, crying my eyes out, and somebody comes up to me and said, you know, you shouldn't be crying. You know, pull yourself together. You're supposed to be a leader. And I'm like, I'm a human being.
Oh my goodness.
But that was the perception in those days, was you didn't show your emotion. You didn't let anybody see. You just had to be together. You had to be perfect.
Wow.
It's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, and there's like so much beauty in being human and being vulnerable and leading with that like true emotional connection to yourself, and it's weird to just lead with.
And I think now things have changed, and it's a lot better, and we allow each other to cry, and we you know, we go through things together, and we're more vulnerable. But it's really good.
So we've heard quite a bit about your son today, which has been very entertaining. But what was incredible that you haven't mentioned yet is the fact that you and him have now written a book together.
Yes.
Called Waymaker.
Yeah.
And this is very exciting. Can you tell us a bit about the book and what to kind of expect from it?
Right. So it's about discovering God's ways and wonders in trials and triumphs. So you've already heard me talk about both, really. We've seen miraculous things happen. We've had mountaintop experiences, but we've also had challenging things happen in both of our lives. And we're trying to encourage people that God is the Waymaker, He's the promise keeper, He's the miracle worker, and He's the light bringer. And we also get to bring that light into people's lives. But the reason I wrote the book was in 2023, I had a very serious, life-threatening illness. I've been healthy and well all my life. I'm having a conversation on the car park at work, and all of a sudden I had what the medics call a thunderclap headache, and it was like somebody had hit me over the head with a hammer.
Oh God!
And basically, to cut the story short, I was having a bleed on an aneurysm which was in my brain. And I got rushed into Salford Royal Hospital. I was told that 30% of people die within the first 24 hours, so the family had to be called. The other 30% die within the first month. And it's very unlikely that if you do survive, that you could survive without any serious, repercussions.
Gosh.
It's technically a stroke. And anyway, I had the operation, and my husband came to say goodbye to me and say goodbye to the kids. And I woke up from the operation, and Waymaker, the song by Sinach, was playing on the hospital radio. I thought I was hearing things. I'm like, I'm sure I can hear Waymaker. I'm looking round to see where it's coming from. It's on hospital radio. And in that moment, I knew that I was going to be healed. I just lay there, just praising God, worshipping. You're not allowed to move for a week. You're on your bed for a week. You can't lift your head off the pillow. You've got to keep perfectly still. And I could hear this song. I thought, praise God. So someone said, you're going to write a book.
Yes.
And then, so you can see me now, like, this is in 2023.
My goodness.
I've got no, I'm perfectly healthy and well, completely come through that. So we're sharing that story in the book as well.
That is amazing. And what is the reason that you did it as, like, both of you together? Was there a significance in sharing both of your perspectives?
Yeah, so we felt we wanted to bring a mother-son perspective, and bringing a mother-son perspective. So he tells the story about him being that conversion experience that he had, that transformation that he had. from his perspective rather than from mine. You know, I'm telling it as a mother, he's telling it as the child that experienced that, the young man who experienced that. He's also talking about his passion to reach the Gen Z generations. And we all know what a move of God is happening amongst that generation at the moment.
It's incredible.
There's more young men coming to church than we've ever had, more men than women.
Wow.
There's just what they're calling the quiet revival. There's so much going on. He's leading prayer meetings all across the country, packed to the rafters of young people who just want to pray and worship God, and they're on their knees, and there's a cry out for holiness. There's the people, the kids are just radically being converted, but radically serving Jesus. It's just wonderful. So he's telling it that perspective, and I'm telling it more from my generation. I've been a Christian for like 40 odd years, and how I see things and how he sees things are quite different. Our worldviews are different. So we're bringing that. And there's an amazing bit in the book where we're talking about, there's a prophet from many, many years ago from the sort of 1960s called Jean Darnell. And Jean Darnell had a vision. She had a vision of the UK being covered in little lights popping up everywhere. And these lights started to get connected together. And this was going to be a revival that was going to happen across the UK. Right. So she also had a picture of sort of satellites connecting and communicating across the airways. It was before the internet was even brought out that she had this prophecy.
Wow.
And she was basically prophesying into all this social media stuff that we're getting now, these influencers and things we were talking about earlier. She saw it before it was even invented. And Josh is talking about that in the book. Who are the godly influences that God is raising up in the social media spaces to communicate the gospel? And it's going to be far more profound than anything we've seen before, because they're reaching millions.
Wow. That is such a nice perspective on the whole like social media stuff, because I think as a parent it can often be scary.
I know we talk about the negative side of it, right? Which there is. But why don't we say, actually, who are the people who are going to speak to the airwaves and tell us the good news of Jesus Christ, tell us these exciting stories and how the gospel then will be preached all over the world through media and the arts, and you can just see it happening at the moment. It's
and
really
there'll be
exciting.
people's kids who, like people who are listening to this, their kids might be the ones that then end up being evangelists through social media, evangelists through gaming, evangelists through all of these things that maybe as a parent you're like, oh gosh, right now. But God can use anything, can't he?
Yeah, because we talk about this thing going viral, don't we? And we sort of sometimes see it in a negative way. But there's a very positive sense in which let's take the gospel and make that go viral. Using these media channels. So I'm really excited. So he talks about that much better than I do because I'm an older person, but he's really excited and into all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, that was so good. I just love that we get to hear from your perspective of like the full journey, the full picture of like what it's like raising young kids and then them kind of going their own ways a bit, the challenging years, and then what you're seeing now, the fruit of them as adults. What would you say were things that you feel like you sowed into them in their early years that you just had to trust the process of that, like the seeds that you sowed would come to fruition at one point, even if you're not seeing it in that moment? What kind of things did you feel that you sowed in?
Well, for me, I definitely think prayer is very, very key in bringing up children and keeping your marriage together if you can, because prayer is just the communication point within your household where you are tapping into the resources of God. It's conversation with God, isn't it? And our kids will always say, Mum, I remember you came into my bedroom and prayed every night with me. And they remember that really well. And they then now do that with their kids, because I've got 7 grandchildren. So they've learned how to pray And prayer is really key when you're going through the good times and the difficult times. What can we give thanks to God for? One of the things I was taught a few years ago, which I now practice, is when I go to bed at night, I think of 3 things that have been good that have happened in that day. And I call them to mind. And even if it's small things like I've had a coffee with someone, an encouraging conversation, or it was a nice sunny day, I went out for a walk, or more profound things like I've led somebody to Jesus, or somebody's helped me, somebody's done something kind for me. And I call those 3 things to mind before I go to sleep at night. And it makes a massive difference to your mental health. When you wake up that following morning, you have a more positive perspective. Even if you are going through something difficult, there's always something to be grateful for. So I do that. I think keeping those channels open, keeping conversation open, and the kids have to feel that they can come to you at any point and speak to you about anything without being judged. And that's a tough one.
That's hard,
I mean, when my eldest daughter, Sarah, was a bit younger than she is now, she came to me with her sister one day. I'll never forget it. We were having lunch in a place called the King's Ransom, which is a pub in Sale. Mum, sit down. Sarah's got something to tell you, says Becky. Sits down. Mum, I'm pregnant, says Sarah. She's not married. Now, I know that's not like a huge deal these days, but we're church leaders, remember that. And I'm like, my face didn't work fast enough. My facial expression didn't move to the joy very, very quickly. I was like in shock, really upset, and she could see it.
Okay.
Now, those things, at least they could come and tell me.
Yeah.
And we worked it all through together. And now I've got a grandson called Josiah, who's 15, who's like the best thing that's ever happened in my life. But at that moment, I'm like, do you know what this is going to be like? You're going to be a single mother.
Yeah.
You know, this is going to be tough. And I know that it's going to be tough. But yeah, they can come to me and talk to me about anything. And they do.
Yeah.
They do. Which is a challenge. But we've got to keep loving each other and go through all these different seasons of life.
Wow. Gosh, raising
She's married
kids.
now and she's got 2 kids and it's all fine. But, you know, at the time, I'm like, I didn't know this is going to happen.
I know. It's funny because like when you start a family, you just imagine like, oh, this is going to be nice. Like taking kids to soft play, and then they get older, they go to school, they do nice things. You don't think about all the like challenges of life that come along the way and all the things that as a parent you're going to just have to shoulder, and that's why it's so important, as much as they've got their connection to you and they can speak to you about anything, that you can go to God with anything. And that you don't ever feel the shame of like that the world can put on us, because that can then stop us from communicating with God.
Yeah, absolutely. And I often say this, the worst thing about church for me, and there's many wonderful things about church, the worst thing about church, I think, is judgmentalism.
100%.
And I see it all the time. And I see it in myself sometimes. But I feel like if we could eradicate that from the church, it would be way, way better. And we'd have far more people just loving God together. Judgmental, because I've got sin in my life. We all have sin in our lives. And we're not perfect people. But we seem to feel we've got permission to judge others.
Yeah.
And we don't like, you know, what they're doing, or their lifestyle, or their, you know, whatever they're doing wrong. Take the plank out of our own eyes first.
Yeah.
And I feel like judgmentalism, and I have to say I'm very proud of my church, because the way they handled that situation with our daughter Sarah was wonderful. She went before the pastor and she said, you know, this is what I've done. I've sinned. I know that I will probably have to leave the church. He said, no, you won't be leaving the church. He said, we will handle it. We didn't cover it up, but they lovingly looked after her, and she is like most on fire Christian for the Lord right now, and being used mightily in God. She's an actress, she's on TV, she's just doing wonderful things for the Lord. But imagine how it would have been if they hadn't dealt with it in that situation. hadn't dealt with it well. How many people are not in church now because of this?
Yeah.
So I'm quite passionate about that.
Wow, yeah. Yeah, it's so important. It's like, our response to things it can actually be life-changing for some people in terms of how they then see God. Because we're representations of God, aren't we? And we have to take that responsibility seriously.
Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, that's so good. Wow, what a load of great stories. Thank you, Deborah. This has been so encouraging and so inspiring.
Wow.
And just, I think it gives me anyway comfort for the journey that I know is to come. Like, it's very easy for me to sit here with my kids being like so little and just have this fairy tale imagination of how things are going to go and everything's going to be perfect as long as I pray with them every night, like, it'll be fine. But obviously there's going to be challenges along the way, but this is so encouraging. So thank you.
Thank you.
Don't forget to check out Deborah's book. This is Waymaker. So it just is such a great idea to do it from the two perspectives. So I do hope that you get your hands on this, discovering God's ways and wonders in trials and triumphs. So thank you so much for listening to Another Mother, and we'll see you in 2 weeks' time. Thank you so much for watching that episode of Another Mother. Deborah Green is just incredible. Weren't those testimonies absolutely amazing? I was so inspired, so I hope that your faith was also stirred and that you feel encouraged about what God can do within your family through your faith. So please do share that episode with somebody that you think might enjoy it, and check out the rest of our episodes from this season already. They've all been absolutely amazing, and we will see you in 2 weeks' time.